At some point in a struggling ERP program, one question shows up faster than any other. Is our partner actually the problem? It's a fair question. Timelines slip, answers start sounding generic, and pressure's building to do something decisive. The risk isn't asking the question. The risk is answering it way too quickly before you even understand what's actually breaking, because sometimes it is the partner. And sometimes it looks like a partner problem, but isn't. And that difference matters. The wrong call here doesn't just fail to fix the program, it usually makes recovery harder. This video is all about telling the difference, and quickly. There are a few partner-related signals that are just way too hard to ignore. They're not abstract. Leaders see them week in, week out. These are different failure modes. You can have one without the others, and the fix is different in each case. First one we're going to talk about is methodology over outcomes. One of the earliest signals is when the partner's methodology starts driving decisions instead of outcomes. You hear things like, phase is advancing because that's the plan, even though the defect volumes suggest otherwise. Testing cycles being treated as fixed requirements, not as responses to actual readiness or business scenarios. Look, the methods become compliance, not control. When the framework matters more than whether the business is actually ready, delivery ultimately suffers. That's not discipline, it's rigidity. What you need instead is a methodology that responds to your company's project's idiosyncrasies, not one that ignores them and tries to put you in a box. The second one is capacity and continuity breakdowns. Another clear signal is basic resourcing failure. Key roles staffed part-time, senior people present for steering committees but not there on the day-to-day stuff. Consultants come and go, and critical knowledge keeps rolling on and off your program. This isn't about style or opinion. If the right people aren't consistently there, the work will stall. That's a partner delivery problem, full stop. Third one is business translation failure. Here are 10 options, you decide. This is the one that the leaders find most frustrating. Consultants can explain the software in detail, they can describe every way the system could work. What they won't do is answer the real question. Which option best supports what we're trying to achieve as a business? And why? You hear phrases like the system can do this in a lot of ways. Here are the pros and cons, you'll need to decide. Depends how the business wants to operate. That's one that we hear over and over again. Workshops end with options on the screen, but with no real recommendations. That's not flexibility. That's design risk being pushed back onto you, the client. Good partners narrow choices, and weak partners expand them, and then step back. Fourth one is design evasion through customization and workarounds. Another strong signal is how quickly customization becomes the default answer. Instead of pushing towards standard capabilities, you see custom code, and bolt-ons, and complex interfaces and integrations and reports. Best practice approaches get dismissed as that's not how you work, without even having a real challenge. Customization can feel accommodating in the moment, but it quietly locks in cost and risk and complexity. When workarounds replace design leadership, the partner has stopped leading. The fifth one is chronic technical execution failure. Finally, here's the most concrete signal of all. Partner-owned technical deliverables that are consistently late or unstable. Integrations miss repeatedly, developments fail test cycles over and over again, the same defects reopen across the various phases. Almost ready becomes the standing status. This isn't about shifting requirements or governance nuance. When the same technical work keeps missing, the issue isn't planning. It's unequivocally execution. Now, let's talk about a critical counterpoint. Strong partners will struggle when decisions keep changing and the scope isn't stable and readiness is assumed instead of enforced. In those conditions, delivery does slow, but not because the partner forgot how to do its job, but because the environment is unstable. Strong partners struggle in weak conditions, but weak partners can hide in really strong ones. That's why the diagnosis matters. Here's the simplest way to tell the difference. Stabilize your decisions, stabilize your scope, enforce readiness. Then see what happens. If performance improves, you didn't have a partner problem. But if performance doesn't improve, you likely do. This isn't theoretical. Leaders see this play out all the time. At this stage, the hardest part isn't fixing the problem. It's actually knowing which problem you're dealing with. Sometimes it's the partner. Sometimes it's decisions, readiness, or scope. And other times it's people, roles that don't fit the phase, leaders stretched too far, or accountability that's diffused instead of being owned. That's why Pemeco uses a structured audit process, not to assign blame and not to score performance, but to diagnose root causes clearly enough that the next decision actually changes outcomes. The goal isn't to defend the partner, and it isn't to justify replacing them. It's to make sure you're solving the right problem before you commit to a decision that's nearly impossible to unwind.